Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I'm a fluid figurative artist. Today I'm going to talk to you about the opacity of paints, the transparency of paints and metallic paints, and also how you can layer them to create the effects that you want. Now, if you're new to my channel, I hope you like this content, and if you do, please help me subscribe and hit the notification button so that you can get a new update from me every time I post new videos on my YouTube channel. So thank you, and let's get started. Now, there are two types of paints. Actually, there are three types of paints, acrylic paints. The first one is an opaque paint. And how you tell if this is opaque is if you see this black box here. If this is all black, means it's an opaque paint. Now, what's the difference between an opaque paint and this one with the blank square box here? Means this is a transparent paint. So what's the difference between a transparent paint and an opaque paint? It's very simple. Look at it as maple syrup and a pancake batter. A pancake batter is thick. So, if you put anything inside, you can't see it. It's opaque. So it's the same for paints like this as well. It's like pancake batter. They're thick. You can't see inside if you pour things inside because they're thick and they cover really nicely. So they make good bases. Whereas transparent paints like this, with this empty box here, these are like maple syrup. It means if you add other things inside it, you can still see it because it's translucent. It's a bit translucent. So this is why this is called a transparent paint. Now, transparent paints are mostly used as main paints. First of all, it's because they're colorful, and then when they mix with opaque colors, you get very nice effects. Thirdly, one thing good about transparent paints is that it depends on the colors. The darker color it is, the higher pigments they have. So they make good bases. But the lighter it is, then most of the time people do not use that as the base, because when the color is light, the pigment is lighter, you can actually see through the canvas when you pour it as a base. So sometimes it's good, but most of the time, if you don't know how to control it well, then it will not turn out so well. So because of that, it's either you use transparent dark paints as your base, or you use those bright pigments like these bright pigments, transparent paints, as your main color to make your paintings more vibrant. Now, nowadays yellows are not fully transparent anymore. They're semi-transparent, and I think this is because this helps to cover the canvas better. They're semi-transparent means that they might contain a little bit of like pancake batter inside of them to make them not so clear like maple syrup. So here I'll be talking about metallic paints. Now, why is metallic paint so special? Let me just find a metallic color if I have one lying around. I have many colors lying around. Now, I have to tilt you down, so there we go. My table is really, really messy. As usual, this is an artist's table. So this is a metallic paint. As you can see, metallic paints, they have this shimmering stuff inside of them. Mine has makeup powder in them. That's why the color is really, really sharp. But for most of the time, metallic paints, to make them metallic, I think there's another ingredient inside it that makes it a bit transparent and definitely not opaque. But the metallic paints help to break down things that is binding the opaque paints and transparent paints. So instead of me explaining it to you, I think if you see it, you'll be able to understand it better. This is brown that I mixed, and it's transparent, but because the pigment is dark, so when you pour it over, so they're similar to opaque paints because of their pigments. Nothing else but pigments, in my opinion. This is solely my opinion and through my experience. Now, if you use lighter colors for this, it won't be so thick because the pigments of this color is lighter, and because of that, if it is thin, you can see through to the canvas. But because darker transparent paints have thicker pigments or darker pigments, and that is why you can't really see the canvas. Now I'm just going to blow this to show you what I mean. You can actually touch it, but I'm just going to blow it out. Now this paint is pretty thick because it's pretty old. I use this for another pour. Okay, I'm just going to add a bit more here to cover the edge. So as I said, darker paints have more pigments, so you can't see the white canvas here, can you? Now it's different if I pour metallic colors on it. So for example, if I pour this metallic color, this is pretty thick too. So I'm just going to pour it here like this. Now this is transparent paint, so you see, due to the pigment, it's very dark, and because of that, even though I apply it flatly, thinly to the canvas, you can't really see the white part of the canvas because this is the pigment here is deep compared to lighter colors. Now metallic is transparent, so you see when I do this, you can see the canvas layers very easily. So this is transparent paint. This makes very good cells if you love cells in your work. Mix them together. For example, if I do this, can you see this coming out? Okay, hold on, probably might not be able to see much. But metallic paints have this kind of effects. These are called lacing. So they create very nice lacing due to the transparency of the paint. Here I have leftover paints as well, but then I'm just going to show you. Because this is opaque, opaque is like pancake batter, so you can't, you won't be able to see you won't be able to see the canvas, even though this paint is very runny, but you can't see the canvas because the paint is opaque. So it's like pouring batter, cake batter onto the surface. So this is opaque, this is transparent, and this is transparent. But because this pigment is darker and thicker, and that is why it looks like it is opaque, but it's not. This paint is opaque, so no matter how runny it is, it will still be able to cover this. Of course, you don't dilute it till like fluidity of a coffee or tea, then that's just, bogus. But if you just do it, mix the paint as it is for all of them, then by right, you should have a nice coating because this is an opaque paint and this is a transparent paint, but they'll both cover the surface of the canvas really nicely. So these are the two differences. And then metallics. Some people love to do, what you can do is like do a line here and then you blow it out. There are many types of ways you can layer it. You can start off with the base. Not the base. You can just pour your main color in the center like this, or most of the time you can pour it in circles too and do a Dutch pour. This is also a Dutch pour, but different style. So it doesn't really matter if you pour this first or the opaque second, or you put the opaque first and the transparent second. For me, it doesn't matter because you already have your base here. As long as it is covered, you'll be able to blow the paints out really well. Now, I like to play around. I don't have a rule that you must pour opaque color first, then transparent colors first, and etc. I don't do that because I like my works to be interesting. I like how the paints integrate together. And when you pour paints of different transparency and weight in different sorts of ways, you get very unique type of artworks. And I love that in my artworks because that's what art is all about. Unpredictability. Right? If you do everything with formula, then most of the time your works will look very stagnant or standardized, which I personally don't really like to do in my pours. So I love to play around. Sometimes I pour the opaque color first and sometimes I pour the transparent colors first. Totally up to you. Now next color I will add probably just a little bit of orange. This is opaque too. As I said, even though orange is a transparent color, but because I added white in here, so it is half opaque. I'm just going to show you what happened. Okay, I'm just going to pour it here first and show you what happened. So there's some white inside here, and that's why the color is so outstanding. But then if I have another color, let me see, where is it? Now this gold is really old, so it's very slimy. Now this is what happens if I pour the gold here. Can you see? It just seeps through inside the brown. See, it just goes inside. Because the metallic paste density is heavier than the transparent paint, and that's why it always goes inside. There's two ways to go about it. You can either torch it and you come out, or if you don't want it, you can always, blow it out or swipe it to get your effects. There we go. So swipe it gently like this, and then you get this kind of effects. And then if you torch it, the gold will pop up even more. Now, if you want to have really nice cells, most of the time you have to use Fluidart or, make your paints really thicker. Then you get really nice circular round cells. But if you just want paint and water, you will get this kind of lacing effects, which is also considered cells, but they're not like those big cells that you expect. Another thing you have to know is that with metallic on transparent colors, when it dries, of course the metallic will pop out because it's metallic, right? So it will shine out. But for a paint that is not metallic, if you put it here, it will just dissolve inside. So for example, I think this green might be transparent. I'm not sure. Let's put and see. No, this green probably is not transparent. So let me mix this together. Okay. I think this green is opaque colors because can you see, even though I torch it, the cells here remain very vibrant. But I managed to find one paint which is totally transparent, and I'll show you where it will go if it's too transparent. Mix this really quickly. Now this is transparent paint, and then if you mix with transparent paints, you see when it's mixed together, you can't really see it, right? Even though you torch it, you might be able to see just a little bit, but that's it. Now what you can do to make the color pop out of this dark surface is most of the time people will add white first before their pink, before the transparent colors, because white, as we know, is opaque. So they usually put opaque first. Well, my white is really watery, so it will affect the paint as well. And then you put white on top. And then if you blow it out, or if you swipe it, can you see the pink color will pop out even more? But of course you get white as well. Now this is because my white is very, very watery. So there are a lot of factors to your paints. Now if your paints are all same consistency, then by right you'll be able to get very, very nice effects. So let me show you when the paints are all consistent and they have very nice effects. Now I have my leftover brown here. I'm just going to pour it here. Okay. And then right. So all these colors have the same consistency in the sense that they're all the same weight. How do you know if this the same weight is if they are the same texture? If one of the paint is too runny than the other, then you know that they're not of the same weight. And how I do this is by eye judgment, of course. But if you like to weigh it, you can always use a small weighing scale to weigh the paints out. But I don't do that because it's just too time consuming. Okay. So I have this opaque color, transparent metallic, and opaque color, which is, this is runny though. So this is runny. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of green because I have this green left and it's also pretty thick. So I'm just going to lay it here. Love how the colors pop up really well. And then I'm just going to touch everything. Ooh, that's pretty nice there. Okay, torching is to blow all this, to pop all the air pockets on the paints so that everything will be smooth. Otherwise, you have a lot of air pockets and a lot of holes at the end of your painting when it dries. Now, most of the time, people love to pour one layer of paints here to help it flow. So this is what I'm going to do too. Just at this edge, at the sides, because this will help, you know, move the paints around. And then I'm just going to torch it. And then now I'm just going to blow it out. So first thing is, most of the time people cover the paints first, gently. Now if you go too low and if you blow too deeply, you're gonna blow all the paints out, and we don't want that. We just want to cover the top part with the base color. To do that, you have to blow gently and make sure that it's, you know, you lift the hair dryer higher up a little bit. And then you just want to cover it. You know, you don't really want to blow the paints away. You just want to cover it. Okay, just cover it. Now I've covered the paints, but the paints, the main colors are all buried underneath there. So this is where once you cover the paints and when you blow it out, the paints are mixed together nicely. One tip is, if you keep blowing and keep blowing and keep, you know, covering many times, the more you do that, the messier the paints, you know, would get. So if you don't want it to be murky, if you don't want it to mix too much, then make sure that you don't overdo the cover up. So now I'm just going to blow it out. Can you see the colors are all mixed together? Now, if you're wearing for the white, you probably won't be able to see the nice green here and there. And if you see certain parts like this that's bulging, means there are still a lot of paints underneath there as well. So you can also just blow it out. There we go. There. Now, I can see there's still a lot of paints in the middle here, and there are also paints here that are left. But I like the effects here, so I'm not going to touch it anymore. There are not much paints left here because, you know, there aren't much paints that's blown that way. And so for this part, there are paints buried underneath. And how you know is you put your torch at a lower setting, and then you just torch it. Ta-da! So now I'm just going to touch everything out. My spoon broke when everything fell, so I'm just going to show you the paint stuck underneath here. See what I'm saying? Get paint stuck underneath there. See, they're pin stuck underneath here, and then you can touch it some more. Don't touch it too hard, just lightly. Okay. Now I deliberately blow it out a lot, really hard, because I want to see the cells coming out from here, and then the rest, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes I like having cells in my works and sometimes I don't, but that's it. Yeah. This is a second example of pour that I'll be showing you how opacity and transparency and metallic paints will affect your paintings. As I said before, that the first thing is that the weight of the paints. Now, even though the paint is opaque or if it's transparent, but if they have the same weight, means their pigment is thick, and if, especially for transparent paints, if their pigment is dark, then most of the time you get similar effects as opaque paints. But if the paint is runny, then obviously it won't coat the canvas properly. It's the same thing too, like my white. My white here is very runny. So even though it is opaque, but if it's really runny, and if I pour this down here, you will get to see the canvas, the surface of the canvas well, because, you know, it's really runny. So most of the time, if you want to pour, you have to make sure that the paint is not too runny and not too thick as well. I don't really like very, very thick paints because I'm so used to runny paints, as it makes my paintings flow more smoothly. And also sometimes runny paints, when they dry, they create really nice crazy effects and, you know, cracking off paints. So I like that kind of effect sometimes too. So sometimes I let my paints run in the sense that I make it really runny, and then sometimes I make my paints really thick. Now here I have Persian blue. I think this is Persian blue. Persian blue is, I think it's a transparent color, but because it's heavily pigmented, because it is dark, so the paint covers really nicely on the surface of the canvas. Just gonna pour it down here. And yesterday I have the leftover blue, which has white in it, so it's opaque, and I'm just going to pour it here. So instead of torching, I'm just going to blow everything out. I'm so lazy at torching it. Okay, I think it's all nicely covered. Right. Okay. Opaque, not opaque, but they're both pretty thick because they have the same consistency. And even though it's transparent and this is opaque, if opaque is a bit ruddy and if transparent paint is a bit thick, then it'll cover the base of the canvas really well. So here I have my metallic paint, leftover paints. Now to make the color pop out even more, you can either add white in it to the colors. Like this one, it was added white, so because of that, when I poured the paint here, the color is vibrant. But if it's a transparent paint poured here without any white, and when you blow it out, you can still see the color, but when it dries, it will dry darker. And that's why, if you ever wonder why when your painting is dry and all these transparent colors does not pop out, it's because of the transparency. So when they dry, they'll always dry darker. Now to help me bring the color out, I'm just going to pour this green first because this green is opaque. I love this green by Pebble. So I'm going to start this color first in the center. Now the reason is, as I say, it's opaque, so it'll help to bring all the transparent colors up. As long as the first main color you put has a density of an opaque paint, which is this, then no matter how much transparent paint you put on top of them, the colors will dry vibrantly. And then next, I'm just going to layer it with metallic blue. Let's put gold. Okay. And then I'm just going to top it up with some green. So these are all transparent colors. Transparent, 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 and then opaque. Transparent, opaque. Now that I have it, I'm just going to touch everything to burst all the air bubbles. And then I'm just going to pour the leftover paints all around it. Now this is a Dutch pour. This term is coined by Rinske Duna. As it was due to her videos that I started pouring paints to form figurative art. And then there we go. So thank you, Rinske. And then now I'm just going to blur everything down. So I'm using, can you see the cells popping out here? So pretty, isn't it? And I've done nothing yet. We are going to overlap the top layer, but we're not going to blow everything away. So we just want to coat the top part so that, you know, we can mix the paints just gently, not too much. I'm going to blow this out. Okay, this turns out very, very beautiful. I know a lot of you love cells, but then for me, I love the flares because these flares, just look at it. There's this softness to it, you know, together with the cell. So there are a lot of textures and different forms to the paints, and that is why I kept doing fluid art technique, because it's really, really fun and interesting to do it. And secondly, to pour a figurative art using this technique is extremely difficult and challenging, but it's also really, really fun for me. And that is why I kept doing it, or I keep doing it. But I'm doing abstract here just to show you how when you mix different paints of different opacity, different transparency, metallics, you get different types of effects. So the more you practice, the more you get to understand the paints, you know, get to know them better. And yeah, after that, you can, you know, you can do whatever you want with the effects of it. Can you see the cells here? They form naturally. As I said, my paints are mostly mixed with just water. It's not mostly, they're all mixed with water and paints. That's it. I do not love to add in Floetrol, silicone oil and stuff like that, because when you do that, won't have really nice flare effects to it because you have those solid cells, which I don't really want in my painting, and that is why, yep, this is my style. Okay, so now I'm going to touch it. As I said, or as I mentioned before, the paintings may look really vibrant when you pour it, and then after that, you know, they will disappear. I mean, they will become darker when they dry, especially for transparent paints. So don't be alarmed. If you want the transparent paints to pop out when it dries, you have to make sure that you add an opaque colors before that, or put a bit of white into that transparent paint, and then when they dry, the colors will be very vibrant. This is like magic. It's pretty, isn't it? Now, the way you touch also affects the paints. So that is a whole other topic that I might go into next time if I have more time. But for now, I'm just going to just teach you these basic ones. Okay, that's it. I really love this piece. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope that you get to learn a thing or two about opacity, transparency, and metallic paints. Now, this would dry really beautifully because, first of all, I have a really light opaque background, so these colors would definitely pop out really well. And secondly, they're expensive paints, so they will shine really nicely when they dry. As for this part, I'm not worried. I know that they'll be vibrant too because they have opaque colors in them, and because of that, even though the top layer is a transparent color, but they will also dry vibrantly thanks to the opaque paints at the bottom. Okay, any questions, just let me know in the comment section. Take care all. The weather's getting cooler now, so take care, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.